From ancient times, our ancestors have passed down invaluable lessons through stories, philosophies, and profound teachings. Today, let us explore the deep lessons of self-cultivation through 28 Zen stories, where every word holds the potential to awaken your mind, free you from worries, and guide you toward inner peace. Zen is not just a method of self-cultivation, but a path to wisdom and freedom. These concise stories offer moments of reflection, helping you discover the core values of life: letting go, acceptance, and living in harmony with nature. Take a moment to calm your mind and step into the meaningful world of Zen stories. Story 1: Laughter Amid Life's Impermanence. In the folds of time in ancient China, there were 3 Zen masters known as the 3 Laughing Monks. What set them apart was their ever-present laughter, which replaced all words and teachings. Whenever they visited a village, they would stop in the market square, and their laughter would echo like a joyful melody, pure and unrestrained. Drawn by curiosity, the villagers would gather, and as if caught by the contagion of their joy, they too would start laughing. In that moment, worries, jealousy, and misunderstandings dissolved amidst the sound of their hearty laughter. The 3 Laughing Monks conveyed a profound message about genuine joy and happiness, untouched by material possessions or external circumstances. As time passed, even the 3 Laughing Monks could not escape the impermanence of life. During one of their stops, one of them peacefully passed away. The villagers, deeply saddened, assumed that the 2 remaining monks would be overcome with grief. However, when they came to pay their respects, they were astonished to find the 2 monks laughing heartily beside their companion's body. Amid the villagers' bewilderment, the 2 monks spoke for the first time. "We laugh because our brother has triumphed. When we were alive together, we made a pact: whoever departs first would be the winner. This laughter celebrates his victory and our loss. For years, we laughed and savored every moment together. So, there is no better way to bid him farewell than with laughter." Despite this, the villagers still felt sorrow. As they placed the late monk's body on the funeral pyre, they discovered a delightful secret. The monk, known for his playful nature, had hidden fireworks inside his robes before his passing. As the flames engulfed the pyre, the fireworks ignited, bursting into radiant, colorful displays in the sky. It was as though the monk was bidding a final, joyous farewell to life. Witnessing this unexpected spectacle, the villagers couldn't help but laugh. Even in death, the monk left behind joy, reminding everyone to smile in the face of life's impermanence and challenges. The story of the 3 Laughing Monks became a legend passed down through generations. Their laughter was not merely a source of joy, but a philosophy of life, a way to face the ups and downs of existence. Sometimes, laughter is the most heartfelt expression of sorrow, helping the departed find peace and the living find strength in the goodness that lies ahead. Story 2: The Warmth of a Crimson Fire. Nestled beneath the roof of an ancient home surrounded by lush bamboo forests, Lady Duong, though over 60, retained a serene beauty and an exceptionally compassionate heart. That winter, as the biting north wind swept through, Lady Duong woke early, wrapped herself in a thick cotton coat, and quietly stepped into the small kitchen. The fire, which had been lit the night before, needed only a few dry logs to reignite into a comforting, glowing flame. She rinsed the rice, added water, and placed the pot over the fire. While waiting for the rice to cook, she took the time to pick and wash vegetables, preparing breakfast for the household staff. The flickering firelight illuminated her kind face, highlighting the wrinkles etched by time. Her eyes glimmered with a simple joy, as if savoring every peaceful moment of life. When the rice was ready, its fragrant aroma filled the kitchen. Lady Duong carried the steaming hot meal to the dining room, where the household staff, already awake and gathered early, eagerly awaited breakfast. Everyone looked at Lady Duong with gratitude and respect. They could feel the genuine love and care she extended to them, as if they were members of her own family. One day, her son, Duong Tong, witnessed his mother waking early in the cold to cook for the household staff. Feeling distressed, he gently said, "Mother, in this freezing weather, why don't you let the servants handle the cooking? You're getting older and need more rest." Lady Duong smiled softly and replied, "My son, maids and servants are people too. They also have parents and families, and they need care and attention. On cold mornings like this, cooking a warm meal for them ensures they have the strength to work." Her words deeply moved Duong Tong. He realized that his mother was not only a kind and loving parent, but also a shining example of compassion and selflessness. Inspired by his wife's noble heart, one day, Duong Van Lai spontaneously composed a poem to honor her virtues. Through changing seasons, her hair turns gray. Yet her steadfast heart never fades away. The crimson fire warms every soul near. Her boundless love shines bright, year after year. The crimson fire of Lady Duong not only warmed the cold winter, but also warmed the hearts of those around her, becoming a beacon that continues to shine brightly in the hearts of all who hear this story. Story 3: The Most Precious Thing in Life. In the serene stillness of the monastery, beneath the shade of an ancient Bodhi tree, an elderly Zen master with silver hair and beard looked kindly at his young disciple kneeling before him. "My child, what do you think is the most precious thing in life?" the Zen master asked in a warm, steady voice. The young disciple, after a moment of contemplation, replied, "Master, I believe the most precious thing in life is what has been lost and can never be regained." The Zen master smiled but said nothing more. Time passed, and the young disciple diligently studied under his master. But then, war and chaos broke out, the monastery was destroyed, and the master, along with many fellow disciples, lost their lives. The young disciple, fortunate to survive, wandered far and wide, enduring countless hardships and the bitter lessons of life. Years later, now grown and withered by experience, he returned to the ruins of his old home. The monastery was a desolate pile of rubble. Yet, beneath the ancient Bodhi tree, he suddenly saw the familiar figure of his master sitting in meditation. "Master," he cried out in joy, tears streaming down his face as he ran toward him. The Zen master, still wearing his gentle smile, calmly asked, "My child, tell me now, what do you think is the most precious thing in life?" The young disciple knelt down, overcome with emotion, and said, "Master, the most precious thing in life is what we have right here, right now, in this very moment." The Zen master nodded, his eyes radiating joy. "You have understood the truth of life," he said. The wind swept through the ruins, carrying with it the distant chime of a temple bell. In that moment, the disciple realized, the most precious thing in life is not what has been lost, nor what is yet to be attained. It is the present, the breath we take, the beating of our hearts, and the loved ones by our side. He had learned to cherish every moment, to live fully in the present without regret for the past or anxiety about the future. Life, after all, is a journey, and the most precious things are the experiences and emotions we embrace along the way. This story reminds us that the present is a priceless gift. Don't let regrets about the past or worries about the future overshadow the beauty of what's happening right now. Live fully, appreciate every moment, and treasure the present so that, as time moves forward, you won't have any regrets. Story 4: Two Empty Boats. Under the serene moonlight, a small boat drifted gently on the lake. On board, a young monk named Tin Tam sat cross-legged, his eyes half closed, deeply immersed in meditation. Surrounding him were only the rustling of the wind and the soft splashes of water against the boat's hull. Tin Tam had left his familiar temple in search of absolute tranquility. He wished to escape the worries and sorrows of worldly life, seeking peace within his soul. Time passed, and the moon rose higher, illuminating the entire lake. Tin Tam remained motionless, his mind seemingly merging with nature. But then, the tranquility was shattered by a sudden noise. The boat shook violently, as if struck by something. A surge of anger welled up within Tin Tam. He opened his eyes and turned around, ready to reprimand whoever had disturbed his peace. Yet, in front of him was only an empty boat, drifting aimlessly across the lake. Tin Tam froze. He realized that the anger he had just felt was not caused by the other boat. It had always been within him, merely waiting for an excuse to surface. A faint smile appeared on his lips. He had discovered a profound lesson: the mind is the master. Everything originates from the mind. If his mind remained at peace, nothing, no matter what happened, could disturb him. From that day onward, whenever faced with unpleasant situations, Tin Tam would remind himself, "It's just an empty boat." Those simple words became a magical remedy, helping him dispel all worries and maintain a tranquil heart. The story of the empty boat serves as a powerful reminder. Life is full of challenges and surprises. Our reactions often stem from within our own minds, not from external circumstances. If we learn to master our minds and maintain inner peace, we can overcome any adversity. Remember, everything originates from the mind. Learn to let go of worries and cherish the tranquility of the present, and you will discover true peace in life. Story 5: A Priceless Lesson on Generosity from Master Vo Duc. At the foot of Tan Sun Mountain, where mist lingered year-round, stood an ancient temple called Vo Yu. This temple was home to Master Vo Duc, renowned for his profound wisdom and a heart as vast as the ocean. One early morning, while dew still clung to the leaves, a young seeker arrived at the temple. Burdened with questions about life, he approached the master and asked, "Master, why is it that, though we all share the same heart, some people are generous and tolerant, while others are narrow-minded and selfish?" Master Vo Duc smiled kindly, his gaze seeming to pierce through all the troubles weighing on the young man's heart. Instead of answering directly, the master led him to a spacious courtyard, where an old stone wall, covered in moss, stood tall. "Close your eyes," the master gently instructed, "and imagine that within your heart lies a fortress, strong and unyielding, a wall that is firm and impenetrable." The young man obeyed, shutting his eyes and concentrating. In his mind, a towering fortress rose, immense and endless, stretching as far as he could imagine. "Have you finished building your fortress?" the master asked. "Yes, I have, master," the young man replied enthusiastically. The master nodded and then continued, "Now, close your eyes again. This time, imagine a feather, light and delicate." The young man closed his eyes once more. His mind filled with the image of a pure white feather, gently floating in the air, weightless and serene. "Do you see the feather?" the master asked. "Yes, I do," the young man replied, opening his eyes with a hint of curiosity in his voice. The master looked at him and posed another question. "When you built the fortress in your mind, did you use anyone else's heart?" "No, master," the young man said. "I only used my own heart." "And when you imagined the feather, did you give it your whole heart?" "Yes, master," the young man replied earnestly. The master smiled, his gentle eyes reflecting an ocean of compassion. He spoke slowly, his voice calm and soothing. "Now you understand. Your heart has the power to build an impenetrable fortress, but it can also sense the lightness of a feather. The capacity of a person's heart is the same. It can be as vast as the ocean or as narrow as a mountain crevice. The important thing is how you choose to expand your heart, to embrace all the beauty and goodness life has to offer. Hearing the master's words, the young man felt a deep sense of peace and serenity. He realized that the capacity of a person's heart is not fixed but can change and expand over time through experiences and understanding. From that moment, he resolved to live a life of compassion, love, and appreciation for everything around him. Learn to open your heart and embrace the world to live a life of greater meaning and happiness. Story 6: A Moment of Stillness. One morning, I woke up feeling heavy and exhausted. A sense of despair overwhelmed my mind, making me think that life had dealt me an unfair hand. Challenges seemed to pile up endlessly, giving me no moment of respite. I dragged myself to the bus stop, paying no attention to the world awakening around me in the gentle light of dawn. On the bus, my gaze wandered to the seat opposite me, where I noticed a young girl, around 10 years old, with a radiant face and sparkling eyes. When our eyes met by chance, she smiled warmly and nodded in greeting. Her smile was so pure that it piqued my curiosity. The girl wasn't just greeting me, she acknowledged everyone around her with the same friendly demeanor. In that moment, I felt a twinge of envy. I silently wished I could be as cheerful and carefree as she was. When the bus reached its final stop, everyone hurried off except for the young girl, who moved slowly. Watching her closely, I suddenly noticed that she was walking with difficulty, supported by wooden crutches. Yet, she seemed entirely unbothered by it. As she passed by me, she looked up, smiled, and said goodbye. I smiled back, feeling a weight lifted from my heart. After a long and tiring day at work, I stopped by a convenience store to pick up a few items. A boy of about 14, with a round face and lively eyes, was helping his mother at the counter. He handed me my carefully packed bag of groceries and tilted his head with a warm smile. On impulse, I patted his head and asked for his name. He shyly shook his head, his eyes betraying a hint of awkwardness. His mother, standing nearby, softly explained, "He can't speak, ma'am." A pang of sadness struck me, but I couldn't help but admire his genuine smile. On my way home, I came across another boy with strikingly beautiful, dark eyes. He stood quietly at the corner of the street, intently watching a group of children playing on the sidewalk. Occasionally, he giggled softly along with them. I approached him and asked, "Why aren't you playing with the others?" He didn't respond. That's when I realized he couldn't hear me. A sense of sorrow and tenderness washed over me. That night, I sat quietly in reflection. I realized how fortunate I was to have a healthy body. Legs that allowed me to walk wherever I wanted, eyes to take in the beauty around me, ears to hear the sounds of life, and lips to speak words of love. I understood that with all these blessings, I had the strength to overcome any challenge or hardship. The 3 brief encounters that day gave me an invaluable lesson about life, to cherish what I have and to face challenges with an optimistic heart. The young girl and the boys I met taught me how to love myself and fully embrace every moment. Because life, no matter how difficult it may seem, is a priceless gift that we must learn to accept with gratitude and unwavering faith. Story 7: Peace blooms where hatred is let go. At the foot of the majestic Tien Quang Mountain, where clouds wove around rugged cliffs, stood an ancient temple named Tin Tam Tuesday. Here, Master Tuesday Tam, with his pure and compassionate soul, taught his disciples the wisdom of the Dharma daily. One early morning, as the mist lingered in the air, novice monk Hoa Thuan, with his round, adorable cheeks, was carrying water back to the temple. Suddenly, he stepped on a water snake. In pain, he fell to the ground, clutching his foot. Frightened by the encounter, the snake struck back, biting him before slithering swiftly into the bushes. Angry, Hoa Thuan grabbed a dry branch, determined to find the snake and exact revenge. Master Tuesday Tam, seeing this from afar, shook his head gently. Approaching with a kind gaze, he softly asked, "Does it hurt, my child?" Hoa Thuan, his eyes still red with tears, replied through his sobs, "Yes, master, it hurts a lot." The master smiled, gently stroking his head, and asked again, "Then why do you want to strike it?" Pouting with anger, the boy replied, "Because I hate it. It dared to bite me." Master Tuesday Tam responded calmly, "You hate it because it bit you, but wasn't it because you accidentally stepped on it first? Hatred only brings more suffering. Even if you kill the snake, the hatred in your heart will not go away. As a student of the way, you must learn to let go." Hearing his master's words, Hoa Thuan's face flushed with embarrassment, and he placed the branch back on the ground. Master Tuesday Tam looked at the young novice lovingly and shared a story. In life, there are 3 ways to deal with hatred. The first is to hold on to it and seek revenge. But hatred will only weigh down your heart and cast a shadow over your soul. The second is to try to forget it, but forgetting is not the same as letting go. The third, and the best way, is to transform hatred. Treat those who hurt you with compassion, like offering them a flower instead of words of resentment. Hoa Thuan stood still, as if awakened by the master's words. He glanced toward the bushes where the snake had disappeared, smiled, and continued carrying water back to the temple, his heart lighter than ever. From that day forward, Hoa Thuan always remembered Master Tuesday Tam's teaching. He understood that hatred was like a smoldering fire, slowly consuming his soul. Only forgiveness and compassion could bring true peace and happiness. Story 8: The Old Hammer. The evening sun bathed the ancient temple in golden light, its warm hues blending with the chime of bells resonating through the mountains. In a cozy room, an elderly monk sat serenely, his eyes radiating a boundless compassion that seemed to hold the entire sky. Beside him, a young novice, innocent and curious as morning dew, knelt attentively. His wide, round eyes sparkled with a thirst for understanding. "Master," the boy said, his voice clear and pure like a babbling brook. "The pure land everyone speaks of, I cannot see it. How can I believe in something I cannot see?" The monk smiled gently, his wrinkled hand resting softly on the boy's head, transmitting a warmth that felt like love itself. Rising slowly, he motioned for the novice to follow him into a pitch-black room, where the darkness seemed to swallow all light. "Look closely," the monk said, his voice deep and warm like the wind through the forest. The young novice squinted, straining his eyes to see the corner of the room where the monk pointed. But no matter how hard he tried, all he could perceive was the thick darkness. "I can't see anything," the boy admitted, shaking his head with visible confusion. The monk said nothing. He quietly lit a small candle. Its soft golden glow slowly pushed back the darkness, revealing a rusty old hammer lying in the corner. The young novice's face lit up with wonder, his eyes shining like stars. "I can see it now," he exclaimed. The monk looked at the boy, his gaze full of love and understanding. "You see," he said gently, his voice soothing as honey, "just because you cannot see something doesn't mean it does not exist. The pure land is like this hammer. Though you cannot yet see it with your eyes, if you believe and practice the way with sincerity, one day, you will experience it for yourself." The young novice bowed his head, his heart filled with gratitude and newfound understanding. The monk's words, like warm sunlight, melted away his doubts and fears, leaving his heart at peace. From that day forward, the boy devoted himself even more diligently to his practice. His faith in the Dharma and the Pure Land grew stronger with each passing day. The story of the monk and the novice offers a profound lesson about faith and enlightenment. It reminds us that not everything in life can be seen with the naked eye. Sometimes, faith itself becomes the light that guides us, leading us toward truth and happiness on our journey. Story 9: Three Figures Under the Bodhi Tree. The gentle rays of the setting sun filtered through the leaves, casting shimmering patterns that danced on the ground beneath an ancient Bodhi tree. An old monk sat quietly, his eyes half closed, as if one with the surrounding nature. Beside him, a young novice diligently swept the fallen leaves, each stroke of his broom gentle and rhythmic, like a peaceful melody. Breaking the silence, the young novice spoke, his voice clear and refreshing like a cool stream. "Master," he said, "I've heard that meditation is about mindfulness in every action. So why are you just sitting here? Isn't that the opposite of meditation?" The old monk smiled, his eyes opening to reveal a serene wisdom. He replied slowly, "My child, meditation does not lie in external forms, but in the state of your inner being. Sitting in meditation is merely a tool to return to your true nature, to calm the mind and become deeply aware of each breath, each sensation." The young novice hesitated, scratching his head. "But master, is sweeping leaves also meditation?" The old monk nodded, his gaze filled with kindness. "Indeed, my child. Meditation is not just about sitting still, it is about bringing mindfulness into every action. When you sweep the leaves with complete presence, free from distracting thoughts, judgment, or comparison, that is meditation." Hearing these words, the novice felt a sudden clarity. His eyes lit up as though he had just uncovered a profound truth. He returned to sweeping the leaves, but this time, his movements were slower and more intentional. He felt each leaf as it fell, each breeze as it passed, and each bird's chirp from the branches above. It was as if he had become one with the universe, sensing life's essence flowing through every moment. The old monk looked at the novice with a fond gaze, nodding gently in approval. He knew the young boy had touched the threshold of meditation, a door neither distant nor mysterious, but one that opens from within, through mindfulness and awareness in each moment. Meditation is not a religion, nor is it a lofty practice reserved for the few. Meditation is life itself, it is breath, it is presence in the now. When we live fully in each moment, free from the burdens of the past and the worries of the future, we are meditating. Story 10: The Shades of Love Through the Eyes of a Zen Master. The soft chime of the temple bell echoed gently, like a breeze brushing past the small hermitage. Spirals of incense smoke swirled gracefully, merging with the tranquil atmosphere. Inside, two monks, a master and his disciple, sat facing each other by an old wooden table. Outside, the crisp chill of early spring crept through the stone paths, but inside the hermitage, the warm glow of the fire illuminated their profound conversation. As Valentine's Day approached, the young disciple, filled with curiosity, broke the silence and asked, "Master, what is a lover?" The Zen master slowly sipped his tea, his gaze vast and all-encompassing, like the sky itself. After a moment, he answered, "A lover is someone you love, someone who may become your enemy, and someone who could turn into a stranger." The disciple, surprised, widened his eyes in disbelief. "How can that be, master?" The master smiled gently, setting his teacup down. His voice was deep and warm as he explained. "Two people in love, when betrayed, may become enemies. When parted, they may turn into strangers." The disciple nodded but couldn't hide the lingering questions in his heart. "Why does it turn out this way, master?" The master's voice, blending seamlessly with the serene atmosphere, replied, "Love is often born out of desire and attachment. With desire comes the urge to possess, to control the other. But when things do not go as one wishes, doubt, jealousy, and anger arise. These conflicts, wounds, and loss of trust lead to breakdowns, sometimes even destruction of one another." Hearing this, the disciple sighed deeply and said, "Why don't they cherish each other more? If they can't stay together, why not bless one another and part ways peacefully?" The Zen master gazed into the distance, his eyes seeming to reach into the infinite. There are many who are unreasonable, but few who understand reason. The selfish are abundant, but the selfless are rare. Those who are obstinate often dominate, while those who are empathetic are scarce. Everyone seeks to protect their own ego, yet few place themselves in others' shoes to understand. The disciple pondered for a moment, then asked, "Is that why you chose to renounce the world, Master?" The Zen master smiled gently and replied, "When someone begins to love, they often do not realize that their feelings will undergo many seasons. The beginning of love is spring, everything is fresh and beautiful. Then summer comes, and conflicts start to arise. In autumn, the warmth fades, and by winter, all has shattered. Yet after that, they seek someone new, repeating the same cycle. Love driven by desire is a river that carries people endlessly through the currents of samsara." Hearing this, the disciple could not hide his concern. "Master, are you discouraging people from loving one another?" The Zen master shook his head gently. "I am not saying love is good or bad. What is best depends on how each person chooses to approach it." The disciple fell silent, lost in thought, before speaking again. "If people don't love, there will be no marriage. Without marriage, there will be no children. Without children, humanity will gradually disappear, won't it, Master?" The Zen master chuckled, his voice filled with compassion. "You need not worry. The connections of sentient beings, formed through countless lifetimes, will naturally bring them together. These karmic bonds are as powerful as the pull between two magnets, difficult to separate. Even if one tries to avoid it, it is not easily escaped." The temple bell chimed once more, its resonant tone filling the tranquil air. The master and his disciple sat together in the small hermitage, enveloped by the rising steam of tea and the scent of incense, their hearts reflecting on love, karma, and the impermanence of life. Story 11: The Strange Cycle of Humanity. Under the shade of the ancient Bodhi tree, the golden rays of the setting sun filtered through the leaves, casting gentle patterns of light onto the serene face of an elderly Zen master. Before him knelt a young man, his expression marked by subtle traces of worry and contemplation. "Master," the young man began, his voice tinged with curiosity and confusion, "why do people live in this world? Life seems so strange, so hard to understand." The old Zen master smiled, his gaze distant as if comprehending all the thoughts swirling within the young man's heart. "You ask why humans are so peculiar? When they are young, they long to grow up quickly, yet when they are grown, they mourn the loss of their childhood. They exhaust themselves working for money, only to later spend that money trying to regain their health. They worry endlessly about the future and forget to enjoy the happiness of the present. They live as though they are immortal, only to realize at the moment of death that they have never truly lived." The young man sat in silence, deeply moved. The elder's words seemed to reach into the very depths of his soul. The young man recalled the years of his youth, consumed by work, sacrificing time and health in pursuit of success. In that relentless race, he had overlooked countless precious moments, warm family dinners, heartfelt conversations with friends, and the simple joy of watching the sunset. Now, despite having achieved everything, he felt an emptiness within. His health had deteriorated, and his closest relationships had grown distant. He realized that in his quest for happiness, he had lost far too much of what truly mattered. The Zen master placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, his voice deep and soothing, like a soft breeze. People often chase after fleeting illusions, forgetting the true essence of life. Happiness does not lie in the destination, but in each step along the journey. Cherish every moment, love those around you, and live each day fully, as if it were your last. The young man bowed his head, tears streaming down his cheeks. He realized he had been living in a long dream, a dream of his own making. He had wasted so much time on meaningless pursuits, neglecting what truly mattered most. Bidding farewell to the Zen master, the young man walked down the path back home, his heart filled with hope and determination. He knew he still had the chance to change, to rediscover happiness. He resolved to slow down, to cherish every moment, to love those around him deeply, and to live each day fully, as if it were the last day of his life. The dream of life had shattered, but he had found a new light, a light guiding him toward true happiness. Remember, happiness resides in the present, in the simple things around us. Do not let worries and sorrows obscure the light of life. Live each day to the fullest so that when you look back, you will have no regrets for having wasted time on meaningless pursuits. Story 12. Do not rush success, live fully in the present. The autumn wind gently rustled through the ancient trees in the courtyard of Tan Tin Temple. Each gust sent thousands of golden leaves fluttering down, like weary butterflies returning to Mother Earth. The rustling of falling leaves mingled with the chime of the evening bell, creating a serene and contemplative melody. Little novice Hoa, just 12 years old, diligently swept the temple grounds. His large, round eyes shone with focus as he carefully and gently swept, as though afraid to harm the lifeless leaves. Though simple, the task of sweeping the leaves was tiring. Hoa rose at the break of dawn and worked tirelessly until noon. Yet the leaves kept falling, unending. One afternoon, as Hoa rested beneath the Bodhi tree, his elder brother Min Duk approached him with a gentle smile. "Hoa," Min Duk said, "I see you're working so hard to sweep the leaves. I know a way to make it easier for you." Surprised, Hoa looked up at Min Duk, his bright eyes full of curiosity. Min Duk picked up a golden leaf and explained softly, "Before you start sweeping, shake the branches vigorously. This way, all the leaves will fall at once, and you won't have to sweep repeatedly." Hearing this, Hoa exclaimed joyfully, "Thank you, brother. That's such a clever idea." The next morning, Hoa woke up early, eagerly running out to the temple courtyard. He began shaking each branch vigorously, causing golden leaves to cascade down like rain, covering the ground entirely. Laughing gleefully, he thought to himself how he would have the whole day to relax. But by afternoon, when Hoa returned to the courtyard, he was stunned. Golden leaves had fallen once again, blanketing the ground as much as the day before. Disheartened, he couldn't understand why his elder brother's method hadn't worked. Just then, the abbot emerged from the meditation hall. Looking at Hoa with compassionate eyes, he slowly asked, "Do you know why the leaves continue to fall?" Hoa shook his head, tears welling up in his eyes. The master smiled gently, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, and said kindly, "My child, there are things in life that cannot be done in just one attempt. The leaves that fall today will fall again tomorrow. Life, too, has its joys and struggles. What matters is that you learn to accept and face everything with calmness." Hearing his teacher's words, Hoa felt a sudden awakening. He realized that one cannot rush to success. Life is a long journey, full of ups and downs, with moments of joy and sadness intertwined. From that moment on, Hoa no longer rushed or hurried. He learned to sweep the leaves slowly, savoring each moment. Every falling leaf became a gift from nature, and every sweep of the broom connected him to the earth and sky. Hoa realized that to achieve what one desires, one must take responsibility for their own life. Patience and acceptance of nature's rhythms are key, not haste or impatience. Success is not found in quickly completing tasks, but in cherishing every step of the journey. Only by living fully in each moment of the present can we discover the true meaning of life. Story 13: The Heart of Tolerance. The autumn breeze gently swept through the temple courtyard, carrying with it falling golden leaves. Inside the warm meditation room, the elderly monk sat peacefully on a cushion, his kind eyes gazing at the young disciple kneeling before him. "Master, what is the whitest thing in this world?" the young disciple asked, his voice tinged with curiosity. The elderly monk smiled, gently stroking his long, white beard. "It is the heart, my child. A tolerant heart can embrace all beings." Hearing this, the young disciple asked again, "Then, Master, what is the narrowest thing?" The elder monk continued to smile, his eyes reflecting deep wisdom. "It is also the heart, my child. A heart filled with hatred cannot even accommodate an ant." He paused, his gaze drifting into the distance as if recalling the past. "Do you know why I say this?" The young disciple shook his head, awaiting the explanation from his revered teacher. "Long ago, I was also a young man, hot-tempered and stubborn. I once harbored resentment against life and those who had hurt me. At that time, my heart was narrow, filled with bitterness, and unable to hold anything good." The elder monk sighed softly, then continued his story. "One day, I met an enlightened master. He taught me that resentment only harms oneself. Only by embracing tolerance and forgiveness can one bring peace to the soul. I followed his teaching and began learning to let go of the grievances in my heart. Gradually, my heart grew more open, capable of holding the vast sky. I realized that when we practice compassion and forgiveness, we discover true happiness." The young disciple listened intently, a profound sense of emotion welling up within him. He came to understand that compassion and forgiveness are not merely admirable virtues, but also the keys to unlocking the door to genuine happiness. The elder monk looked at him with a loving gaze and said, "Remember my words today, my child. In life, learn to embrace tolerance and forgiveness. When you have an open heart, you will be able to hold an entire sky of peace." The young disciple bowed his head, committing every word of his master's teaching to memory. From that day forward, he strived to live with a heart full of compassion and forgiveness, ensuring that each passing day was filled with peace and happiness. The story serves as a gentle reminder of the importance of compassion and forgiveness. When we learn to let go of the resentment in our hearts, we will discover true peace and happiness. Let your heart remain open, so it can hold an entire sky of serenity. Story 14: The Novice Monk and the Steamed Buns. The golden morning sunlight bathed the curved roofs of the ancient temple perched atop a high mountain, heralding a new day. In the serene atmosphere, the sound of the temple bell echoed, awakening everyone from their slumber. Reverend Min Tam, a venerable monk, lived a simple and humble life with his two disciples, Min Chi, a young man full of enthusiasm, and Menon, a little novice monk with big, curious eyes that always sparkled with wonder. That morning, as the faint aroma of incense lingered in the air, Menon noticed something unusual. While the master and senior disciple each received 6 fluffy white steamed buns, he was given only 4. A sense of injustice welled up within Menon. "Why is my senior treated equally to the master, but I am not?" he wondered. After some thought, Menon decided to approach his teacher and share his feelings. Standing before Reverend Min Tam, he hesitantly asked, "Master, may I have 6 steamed buns like you and my senior brother?" Reverend Min Tam smiled gently, his eyes radiating wisdom. "Are you certain you want to eat 6 buns?" he asked. "Yes, I do," Menon replied with determination. The master handed him the remaining 2 buns from his own share, his gaze calmly observing the little monk's actions. Overjoyed, Menon eagerly devoured all 16 buns. Feeling satisfied, he exclaimed, "See, master? I finished 6 buns. From now on, I'd like to have 6 buns every morning, just like my senior brother." Mencius nodded slightly and said, "Very well. Tomorrow morning, you will receive 6 buns. But now, why don't you try drinking a full bowl of water?" Menon followed his master's instructions. However, after drinking the bowl of water, his stomach felt bloated, and an overwhelming discomfort set in. He realized he had overeaten, far exceeding his body's needs. Reverend Mencius gently explained, "You see, those extra 2 buns didn't bring you joy, they only made you uncomfortable. Sometimes, having more doesn't mean being happier. Don't compare yourself to others. Learn to appreciate what you have and be content." Menon bowed his head, his heart filled with gratitude. His master's words sank deep into his mind. He understood that he had been wrong to compare himself to his senior brother. From that day forward, Menon no longer asked for extra buns. He ate just enough and found happiness in appreciating what he already had. Story 15: The Silk Scarf. The golden twilight bathed the entire Zen garden, where the Buddha sat peacefully on a large stone. His hand gently lifted a soft silk scarf, the brilliant light reflecting off every strand of silk. Thousands of disciples surrounded him, their eyes filled with admiration, sparkling as they awaited the teachings of the Enlightened One. "What do you see?" the Buddha asked, his hand gently raising the silk scarf. "Master, a beautiful silk scarf." The disciples replied in unison, their voices mixed with admiration. The Buddha smiled, and his hand skillfully began to tie knots on the smooth silk scarf. 1 knot, 2 knots, then 3, 4, and 5 knots gradually appeared on the scarf. "Now, is it still the same silk scarf?" he asked again. The disciples looked at each other, and one boldly replied, "Master, it is still the same scarf, but now it is different. It bears the knots." The Buddha nodded in approval and then gently pulled on both ends of the scarf. "If I keep pulling like this, will the knots untie?" "Master, no. The more you pull, the tighter the knots become." The disciples answered in unison, "Correct. Life is like this scarf. Every person is born with a pure Buddha nature, but the knots of greed, anger, and ignorance gradually form, covering up the light within." The Buddha paused for a moment, his compassionate gaze sweeping across the disciples, then he asked again, "Then, what should we do to untie these knots?" A young monk stepped forward and respectfully replied, "Master, instead of pulling, we should calmly observe and understand how the knots were formed. Only by understanding the cause can we find the way to untie them." The Buddha smiled in approval. "Indeed. You have understood today's lesson. Do not rush to solve a problem without fully understanding its source. Be still, observe, and listen to the inner voice. Only when wisdom illuminates the path can we untie the knots in our lives." He handed the silk scarf to the young monk, his eyes filled with trust. "Keep this scarf. It will remind you of the precious lesson today." The young monk carefully held the scarf, his heart filled with gratitude. The twilight gradually faded, and the Zen garden was immersed in silence. Yet, the Buddha's teaching still echoed in the minds of everyone present. The Buddha's silk scarf is a profound lesson for all of us. In life, do not rush or hurry. Learn to stop, observe, and understand. Only when the mind is at peace can we clearly see all problems and find the best solutions. Live calmly, so that each step on the journey of life is firm and full of wisdom. Story 16. Dissolving Evil Connections. In the heavy downpour of the late night, the dim light flickered from the humble wooden house of the old woodcutter. Hearing a soft knock on the door, he opened it to see the silhouette of a soaked monk quietly standing under the eaves. A surge of compassion arose within him, and the woodcutter hurriedly invited the monk inside to escape the rain. Nam mo adi de fat, please come in and rest. The monk folded his hands in salute, his warm voice dispelling the coldness of the rainy night. Thank you, kind host. The woodcutter poured a cup of hot tea for his guest. During their conversation, the monk shared that he was traveling on a spiritual journey and, unfortunately, had encountered a heavy rainstorm, so he sought shelter for the night. The woodcutter gladly offered his bed for the monk to rest. The next morning, the rain had stopped. The monk woke up early, joined his hands in gratitude, and said, "Good connections, bad connections, they are all connections. What you sow is what you reap." The woodcutter heard this but did not fully understand, so he simply smiled and saw his guest off. Years passed, and the woodcutter grew old and fell seriously ill. Before closing his eyes for the last time, he called his son to his bedside and said, "Father has one last request. Go to the temple on the mountain, find a monk named Min Tam, and tell him that father has repaid the debt from years ago." The son, following his father's words, took care of the funeral arrangements and then set off on a journey to find the temple. Upon reaching the temple, he met the abbot and recounted his father's message. The abbot smiled kindly and replied, "Min Tam is my Dharma name. It was your father and you who saved me that stormy night. Now, I have attained enlightenment, all thanks to the merit and good fortune from the kind connection your father and you had sown." Saying this, the monk took out a small cloth bag and handed it to the young man. "This is the seed of a Bodhi tree. Take it and plant it by your father's grave. The tree will bless your family with peace and happiness." The young man thanked the monk and took the seed back to plant it beside his father's grave. Strangely, just a few days later, the seed sprouted and quickly grew into a lush Bodhi tree. From then on, the young man's family experienced continuous good fortune, prospering in business, and living a warm and happy life. Live with a compassionate heart, sowing good seeds to bring meaning to life, to dissolve all enmities, and to bring peace to yourself and those around you. Story 17. For things the Buddha cannot change. The gentle morning sun stretched across the ripe rice fields, and the breeze carried the faint fragrance of lotus flowers from the calm river. By the riverbank, Buddha Siddhartha Gautama sat in stillness, a compassionate smile on his lips, like the dawn light, dispelling the mist in the hearts of his disciples. A young novice, with innocent eyes full of questions about life, joined his hands in reverence and asked, "Master, you are the enlightened one, endowed with great wisdom and power. Why, then, does the world still overflow with suffering?" The Buddha looked at the young novice, his gaze gentle as if it could see through the boy's heart. He softly replied, "My child, even though I possess great wisdom and the ability to transform, there are 4 things that cannot be changed." The disciples around them fell silent, listening intently. The Buddha calmly explained. 1. Karma cannot be changed. Good deeds bring sweet fruits, while evil deeds lead to bitter consequences. No one can bear the karma of another. Karma always operates fairly and justly. 2. Wisdom cannot be gifted. Wisdom is not something we can give to others. To attain wisdom, each person must make their own efforts to learn, cultivate, and practice. 3. The Buddha's teachings cannot be expressed in words. The teachings of the Buddha are not in words, but in enlightenment. Only when one personally understands the truth can they attain inner peace. 4. Without a connection, salvation cannot be achieved. Though the gates of the Buddha's teachings are always open, only those with a connection can enter. Just as the spring rain nourishes all things, a tree without roots cannot absorb water. The Buddha's teachings were like a light that illuminated the soul, helping everyone realize that life is a series of connections that cannot be forced. Meetings, separations, joys, sorrows, and bitterness, all are links in the cycle of samsara. The young novice, inspired by the Buddha's words, later became a great enlightened monk. He always used his compassion and wisdom to sow good seeds throughout the world, bringing the light of the Buddha's teachings everywhere. Story 18. When the wind drives the rain away, the grass remains green. That summer, the scorching sun seemed to scorch everything, leaving behind dry, cracked earth on the Shaolin Temple grounds. The lush green grass that once covered the land was now just a barren expanse. The young novice, Tin Tam, with eyes as clear as morning dew, looked at his master Min Tri and hesitantly pointed toward the parched courtyard. "Master, what if we sow some seeds there?" Master Min Tri smiled gently and said, "Do not rush, my child. Let things unfold in their own time." A few days later, when the seeds for the green grass were ready, the master handed them to Tin Tam. Eagerly, the young novice began planting them. But suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew up, scattering many of the seeds he had just sown. Worried, Tin Tam rushed to his master, his voice filled with confusion. "Master, the wind has blown all the seeds away." Master Min Tri remained calm, his voice as deep and soothing as the tolling of a temple bell. "It's all right, my child. Those seeds never had enough vitality to sprout. Let things unfold naturally." Tin Tam continued to sow the seeds. But this time, a flock of birds came and pecked up the seeds scattered on the ground. Panicking, the young novice hurriedly shooed the birds away, then rushed back to his master, his voice filled with worry. "Master, the birds have eaten all the seeds." Master Min Tri looked off into the distance, his gaze serene. "Do not worry too much, my child. There are still many seeds left, the birds cannot eat them all. Let things unfold as they are meant to." That night, a heavy rain suddenly poured down. Tin Tam hurried to his master's room, tears welling up in his eyes. "Master, the rain is so heavy. The seeds have been washed away." Master Min Tri gently stroked the boy's hair, his voice soothing as if comforting him. "If they are washed away, then so be it. The seeds will find the right place to sprout on their own. Let things unfold according to their own conditions." Days passed, and the young green grass began to sprout from the soil that seemed to have been barren. In fact, even in places where Tin Tam had not sown any seeds, vibrant green shoots appeared, full of life. The young novice happily ran to his master, his eyes sparkling with joy. "Master, all the seeds have sprouted." Master Min Tri smiled, his eyes full of delight. "That's how it is, my child. Rejoice in the natural flow." Tin Tam gazed at his master, feeling an unusual sense of peace rising within him. He suddenly realized that all things in life follow the laws of nature. There are things beyond human control, and the most important thing is to accept, let go, and live in harmony with the natural flow of life. The lush green grass stretched out under the golden sunlight, like a carpet bringing life to the temple garden. In Tin Tam's heart, the lessons from his master had sown seeds of goodness, which then sprouted, bloomed, and bore fruit in the young boy's soul. Let life flow according to the natural laws. There is no need to force anything, nor should we rush. By accepting the conditions of life and living in peace, we will find true tranquility and happiness. Story 19. When wisdom encounters pride. In the cool green bamboo forest, where the sound of the stream mingled with the autumn breeze, a renowned Zen master, famous for his profound wisdom and boundless compassion, sat in meditation in a simple room. One evening, as the soft golden sunlight filtered through the leaves, a tall figure appeared at the door. It was a famous samurai warrior, carrying with him a sense of pride and absolute confidence. Holding a struggling carp in his hand, the samurai's eyes gleamed with challenge. The samurai spoke in a deep voice. "Let's make a wager. Is the fish in my hand alive or dead?" The Zen master slowly opened his eyes, a gentle smile appearing on his lips. In the silence that followed, the master looked deeply into the samurai's eyes and calmly replied, "It is dead." The samurai laughed, releasing the fish onto the ground. The carp wiggled vigorously and swiftly swam into the nearby stream. The samurai lifted his head high, speaking with a triumphant tone. "You have lost. This fish is still alive." The Zen master continued to smile, his eyes filled with calmness. "Indeed, I have lost." The samurai was surprised by the master's response. He couldn't understand why someone so famous for his wisdom would so easily accept defeat. He asked, "Why did you say the fish was dead?" The Zen master looked at him with compassionate and wise eyes. "Because if I had said it was alive, you would have killed it. I would rather lose than let an innocent being die." These words struck the samurai like a beam of light, piercing his soul. He stood still, filled with regret and shame. Bowing his head before the Zen master, his voice trembling, he said, "You have taught me a valuable lesson. I am sorry for my arrogance and disrespect." The Zen master placed a hand on his shoulder, his gentle smile still on his lips. "Do not apologize. Learn to cherish life and treat all beings with compassion." Leaving the meditation room, the samurai felt as though a great weight had been lifted from his heart. He realized that victory did not always come from strength or intelligence, but sometimes from compassion and sacrifice. The story of the Zen master and the samurai spread far and wide, becoming a profound reminder. Sometimes, losing is actually the greatest victory, for compassion has the power to transform a person. Live with understanding, tolerance, and respect for all life, for that is the truest victory in life. Story 20. 100 goats are not enough, 100 years still lacking, when will it be enough? Amid the lush green hills of a distant land, there lived a wealthy man named Tranvan. He owned vast fields, magnificent houses, and a herd of 99 fat goats. Yet, his heart never felt content. Every night, he tossed and turned, unable to sleep, haunted by the thought that he needed one more goat to reach the perfect number, 100. One night, in a half-dreaming state, the wealthy man suddenly remembered the ancient temple atop a mountain near the village, where it was rumored that a pure white, gentle goat was kept. The next morning, he hurried to the temple to meet the abbot. Under the shade of an old Bodhi tree, the Zen master sat in meditation, radiating peace and tranquility. The wealthy man knelt and respectfully joined his hands. "Master, I have heard that your temple keeps a white goat. I humbly ask for your compassion and permission to take the goat home to raise." The Zen master gently nodded and, with his eyes closed, replied, "Take it with you." The wealthy man, overjoyed, hurriedly led the white goat back to his home. He treated it with the utmost care, cherishing it as a treasure. But his joy was short-lived. Just a month later, the wealthy man returned to the temple, looking worn out and gaunt. "Master, now I have 100 goats, but I still feel it's not enough. How long will it take before I have 200? The Zen master smiled, poured a cup of tea, and handed it to the wealthy man. "Drink this tea." The wealthy man took a sip, then grimaced. Why is this tea so salty? The Zen master calmly responded, because there is salt in the tea. No one likes salty tea, yet you keep making and drinking salty tea. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. Just like human greed, the more one has, the more one desires. Even if you had an entire ocean, it would not quench that thirst. The Zen master's words were like a beam of light piercing the wealthy man's mind. He realized just how much his greed had caused him suffering. From that moment, he changed his way of life. The wealthy man no longer chased after fleeting material desires. He learned to be content with what he had, living simply and peacefully. He spent more time with his family and friends and began helping those in need. His life became more meaningful and happier than ever before. He realized that true happiness does not lie in acquiring more, but in knowing enough and being willing to give. Happiness does not come from having everything, but from appreciating what we already have. Do not let greed become the salty tea that makes thirst persistently worse. Living simply, being content, and sharing are the paths to true peace and happiness. Story 21. The moon casts shadows, the elephant reflects the heart. On that full moon night, the round moon hung high above the ancient pagoda, its gentle light spreading across the peaceful temple grounds. Under the moonlight, the shadow of a venerable monk stretched across the marble floor, with a young novice beside him, attentively listening. The master spoke, his voice deep and soothing, like the sound of a temple bell. Do you know, my child, that the good and evil within every being are like the shadow of an elephant under the moon? Sometimes it is full, sometimes it wanes, sometimes it hides, and sometimes it appears. The young novice looked up, his eyes sparkling as they reflected the moonlight. Master, I don't understand. The venerable monk smiled gently, then slowly pointed toward the distant forest. Long ago, in that forest, there was a strong and mighty white elephant. It was raised by the king and became an unbeatable warrior. But then, a great fire destroyed its home, forcing the elephant to seek refuge in a nearby temple. The master's voice grew somber, as if recalling a long-forgotten story. At that temple, the elephant listened to the chanting of sutras day and night, absorbing the Buddha's teachings on compassion and forgiveness. Gradually, its fierce nature was tamed, replaced by kindness and tolerance. The young novice's eyes widened in astonishment. Even a warrior elephant can change, master? Yes, my child, the venerable monk nodded, but fate led it back to the palace. There, it witnessed brutal killings and torture. Its aggressive nature resurfaced, even stronger and more ruthless than before. The young novice fell silent, contemplating the master's story for a long time. Finally, he looked up, his eyes shining brightly. I understand now, master. Good and evil within each of us are not fixed, they change according to our circumstances and what we come into contact with. The venerable monk smiled and gently patted the young novice's head. You have grasped the most important lesson. Our hearts are like a garden, needing to be tended and watered with good seeds. Only then can the flowers of compassion bloom, and the fruits of forgiveness ripen. The young novice bowed his head, engraving the master's teachings deep into his heart. The moon remained full and bright in the sky, casting light on the two of them as they walked slowly, leaving behind the story of the white elephant and the lesson on good and evil. The story of the white elephant is not only a fable about the changing nature of good and evil, but also a profound reminder of the importance of the environment and the people around us in the development of the soul. Like the elephant, we are easily influenced by external factors. However, with mindfulness and effort, we can adjust ourselves and choose our own path. By nurturing good seeds in our hearts, we can overcome temptations and become individuals who contribute positively to society. Story 22, Brick and Mirror, The Journey of Enlightenment. At the foot of Mount Nam Nak, the gentle moonlight shone down on the ancient meditation temple, where Master Huayan Wang taught the way day and night. Among his disciples, Ma Dao Not stood out with his handsome appearance and eyes as bright as the stars in the night sky. One night, in the stillness of the moonlight, Huayan Wang quietly approached Ma Tu. Seeing his disciple sitting in meditation with persistence, the master smiled and gently asked, "Dao Not, why are you sitting in meditation?" Ma Tu respectfully replied, "Master, I meditate to become a Buddha." Huayan Wang said nothing, only picking up a rough brick and slowly rubbing it against a stone slab. The sound of the grinding brick echoed through the stillness, making Ma Tu curious. "Master, what are you grinding the brick for?" "I am grinding it to become a mirror," Huayan Wang calmly replied, his gaze still fixed on the brick. Ma Tu was astonished. "How can a brick become a mirror?" The master stopped and looked deeply into Ma Tu's eyes. "A brick cannot become a mirror, so how can sitting in meditation make you become a Buddha?" The question flashed like lightning in Ma Tu's mind, awakening him. He suddenly realized he had mistakenly thought that meditation was the only path to enlightenment. All this time, he had focused only on the external form, forgetting the true essence of meditation. Seeing his disciple's realization, Huayan Wang continued, "If the cart doesn't move, do people whip the cart or the ox? If you practice meditation but cling to the form, it's no different than suffocating the Buddha within yourself." The teachings of Huayan Wang were like a cool stream, refreshing the soul of Ma Tu. He realized that meditation was not a goal to be attained, but a journey to discover one's true nature. From then on, Ma Tu decided to leave Nam Nak, carrying his master's teachings with him to seek his own path to enlightenment. Many years later, he became a famous Zen master, spreading the teachings of Zen Buddhism far and wide. Whenever he taught, Ma Tu always reminded his disciples, "Meditation is not in the form, but in the practice of daily life." The teachings of Huayan Wang were like a cool stream, refreshing the soul of Ma Tu. He realized that meditation was not a goal to be attained, but a journey to discover one's true nature. From then on, Ma Tu decided to leave Nam Nak, carrying his master's teachings with him to seek his own path to enlightenment. Many years later, he became a famous Zen master, spreading the teachings of Zen Buddhism far and wide. Whenever he taught, Ma Tu always reminded his disciples, "Meditation is not in the form, but in the practice of daily life." Story 23, Giving and Receiving. One peaceful afternoon, a young student was walking with a beloved professor known for his kindness and friendliness. Along the way, they came across an old pair of shoes lying in the middle of the road. They guessed that the shoes belonged to a poor farmer working in the nearby fields. The student said to the professor, "Master, let's play a little prank on him. I'll hide the shoes, and then we can hide behind the bushes to see how he reacts." The professor smiled but stopped him. "Young friend, we should not use the circumstances of the poor to amuse ourselves. But you can find another way to bring joy to both of us." The professor suggested, "Why don't you try placing a coin in each shoe and see what happens?" The student agreed and carried out the suggestion. Then, they both hid in the nearby bushes to observe. A moment later, the farmer finished his work and walked over to his shoes. As he slipped his foot into the first shoe, he felt something unusual inside. He bent down to check and found a coin. Astonished, he picked up the coin, examined it closely, flipping it back and forth, his eyes shining with both joy and surprise. He looked around, saw no one, and then placed the coin in his pocket. When he put on the second shoe, he found another coin. This time, his emotions overwhelmed him. The farmer knelt down, looked up at the sky, and offered a heartfelt prayer. "Thank you, some kind hand that has helped my family in this difficult time." My sick wife and hungry children will be saved by this gift." The student stood frozen, tears streaming down his face. The professor gently asked, "How do you feel now? Does this joy mean more than playing a prank on someone else?" The student replied, his voice choked with emotion, "Master, you have taught me a lesson I will never forget. Today, I finally understand that giving brings greater happiness than receiving. Kindness, even in its smallest form, can make a big difference in someone else's life. Giving not only brings joy to the recipient, but also brings a deeper happiness to the giver. Let us open our hearts and spread acts of kindness, for it is these simple gestures that add beauty to life." Story 24: The Value of Life. One day, in a peaceful temple, the young monk asked his master, "Master, what is the value of a person's life?" The master smiled, went into his room, and brought out an ugly stone, saying, "If you want to know the value of life, take this stone to the market and try to sell it. But remember, no matter what price anyone offers, you must not sell it. Just bring it back to me." The young monk was surprised, but, curious, he decided to follow the master's instructions. That day, he took the stone to the market. Despite sitting there all day, no one showed any interest in buying the lifeless stone. Finally, a street vendor passed by and, feeling pity for the monk, offered 500 dong. Remembering his master's words, the young monk brought the stone back and recounted the experience. The master smiled and said, "Well done. Tomorrow, take this stone to a jewelry shop. And remember, no matter what price they offer, you must not sell it." The next day, the young monk took the stone to a jewelry shop. After inspecting it, the jeweler surprisingly offered 5 million dong. Astonished, the monk brought the stone back to the master and asked, "Master, why was the stone worth only 500 dong yesterday, but today it is valued at 5 million? The master smiled and replied, "You will understand when you take the stone to an antique shop. Do as I instructed, and remember not to sell it, no matter the price." The following day, the young monk took the stone to an antique shop. After carefully examining it, the shopkeeper was stunned and offered to trade his entire fortune for the stone. As instructed by the master, the monk did not sell it but brought it back. When he met the master, the young monk eagerly asked, "Master, why did the value of this stone change so dramatically?" The master explained calmly, "This stone is like a person's life. Its value does not lie in the stone itself, but in how others perceive it. In the market, it is just a lifeless rock. In the jewelry shop, it is a valuable material, and in the antique shop, it is a treasure." Similarly, the value of a person's life depends on where they place themselves. If you place yourself in a place where others cannot understand your worth, you will always be looked down upon. But if you seek out places where your value is recognized, where your worth is acknowledged, you will become precious. The value of our lives is not only determined by ourselves, but also by how we choose where to place our trust and contribute. Seek the right place, the right environment, where you are cherished and can shine. At the same time, always remember that true value does not come from appearances or prejudices, but from the self-confidence and determination in your soul. Story 25: 5 Minutes and Care. One peaceful afternoon in the park, a woman sat down next to a man on a bench. "That is my son," the woman pointed to the boy in the red outfit playing on the slide. "He's so smart. And your son is the one in the blue outfit playing on the swing, right?" The man smiled and nodded, glanced at his watch, and called his son. "It's time to go now, son." "Dad, please give me 5 more minutes," the boy begged, his eyes full of hope. The father nodded in agreement. "Just 5 more minutes." The boy happily continued playing, while the man sat back down. When the 5 minutes were up, he stood up again. "Son, it's really time to go now." "Dad, can I have 5 more minutes?" "Just this one time." The father smiled gently and agreed. "All right, 5 more minutes." The woman sitting next to him was surprised. "You are so patient and loving with your child, but aren't you worried about spoiling him?" The man was silent for a moment, his eyes thoughtful. Finally, he softly replied, "Before, I was so busy with work. I had no time for my family. My older son would always beg me, 'Dad, just play with me for 5 minutes.' But I always answered, 'Maybe later, son.' Then one day, when I was still busy, my child was playing on his bicycle alone in the park. He was hit by a car driven by a drunk driver. I never had the chance to give him the 5 minutes he had once begged for." The man paused, his eyes filled with regret and love. "Since that day, I swore I would never let something like that happen to my second child. Every time I give my child 5 more minutes to play, it is also a moment for me to give myself 5 more minutes to watch and enjoy the joy of the child I love. Those moments are truly precious for both of us." The woman remained silent, deeply moved by the lesson on the value of care and presence in life. Don't let busyness cause you to forget the important moments with your loved ones. 5 minutes of attention can make a lifetime of meaning. Story 26: The Values in Life. Opportunities for success are always present for everyone. However, not everyone will love or understand you the way you hope. Cherish every moment with the people around you, express your feelings to them, because you may not have the chance to do so again. Mistakes do not define your value or dignity. Have the courage to acknowledge your mistakes, learn to accept your own flaws as well as the imperfections of others, because no one is perfect. What matters is never repeating the same mistakes in the same circumstances. Learn to accept things as they are. There is no reason to be angry when you cannot change things to your liking, just as you do not need to force yourself to like everything. However, you can still live and coexist with those things. Mastering your own emotions and actions is the most important thing, because no one can control your emotions except for you. If you have a bad day, remember that it stems from how you perceive and face it. On the other hand, if you believe that your day will be bright, you will have a wonderful day as expected. Always strive, especially when facing difficulties and challenges that seem insurmountable. You cannot solve problems for others, but your care, encouragement, and support can be a powerful source of strength to help them overcome their challenges. It is never too late, and it is never completely hopeless or impossible. As long as you strive and hold on to your faith, every door can be opened. Story 27: The Things I Have Learned from Life. I have learned that caring for others may seem easy, but it is often the hardest thing to express. I realize that every time I share pain with someone who is desperate, I feel more meaningful in this life. When I learn to love and sow hope for others, I find that I love life even more. I have understood that healing the pain of the soul is just as important as healing the physical body. I realize that if I don't know how to care for myself, I can't truly care for others. The times I lay alone in the hospital, I had the opportunity to reflect, look back at what has passed, and strive to live better for tomorrow. I have learned that my body listens to what I say. If I constantly think positively and maintain an optimistic attitude, my body will be healthier. When I truly love someone, I realize that I am ready to care for them without any calculations or expectations. Time still quietly passes, whether I live happily and optimistically or drown in disappointment. I understand that, while I cannot change reality, what matters is determining my direction and not waiting in dissatisfaction or frustration. The greatest success is not what I achieve for myself, but helping those around me discover their potential. I have learned that to face the complexities of life, it is important to clearly define each step to take, rather than allowing myself to be swept away in confusion. Forgiveness may not be enough, but criticism or hatred, even a little, is already too much. I understand that sincerity is more important than eloquent words. Each day brings its challenges, but I don't want to let go of the good things, for they may never come back. I have come to realize that everyone has the ability to transform the pain and sorrow in life into true joy and happiness. Story 28. The Barbershop by the Road and the Lesson from Buddha. The afternoon breeze gently swept through the narrow street, carrying with it the sound of dry yellow leaves rustling. Inside the old barbershop, the snipping of scissors blended with the casual chatter between Mr. Hoa, the longtime barber, and a regular customer. "There's no such thing as Buddha," Mr. Hoa muttered, his eyes briefly glancing at the emaciated beggar shuffling by outside. The customer, Mr. Min, stopped, surprised by the remark. He gently asked, "Did you say that? You've always been a devout person, living a virtuous life." Mr. Hoa sighed, his voice lowering. "Just look at the miserable lives out there. If there were a Buddha, why do they still have to suffer like that?" Mr. Min fell silent, his eyes showing a hint of sadness. After the haircut was finished, he paid and walked out of the shop. But just then, as if realizing something, he turned back and said, "Mr. Hoa, there's no such thing as a barber." Mr. Hoa was surprised, furrowing his brow and asking, "What are you talking about? If I'm not a barber, then what am I?" Mr. Min smiled and pointed across the street, where a man with messy hair and a tangled beard was sitting. "If there is such a thing as a barber, why does he look like that?" Mr. Hoa laughed. "Of course there are barbers, but if he refuses to come into the shop, what can I do?" Mr. Min's eyes lit up. He looked directly at Mr. Hoa and said, "Buddha is the same way. He is always waiting with open arms, but we refuse to come close, turning our backs, denying him, believing that we are always right." Mr. Hoa fell silent. Mr. Min's words seemed to touch a hidden corner of his soul. He remembered the times he had complained when his prayers went unanswered, the moments of disappointment and doubt. Mr. Min gently patted Mr. Hoa's shoulder and continued, "Buddha is not a deity who grants blessings or punishes us. He is a teacher who shows the way, helping us escape suffering through our own compassion and determination." The evening breeze continued to blow, but within Mr. Hoa, a different wind seemed to pass through, cool and gentle. He felt as though he had just been enlightened, understanding something very important. From that day on, Mr. Hoa continued to cut hair and chat with his customers. But within him, all resentment and doubt had vanished, replaced by a deep sense of peaceful faith. He realized that Buddha is always there, within each of us, as long as we open our hearts to receive him. Thank you all for following and listening to the meaningful insights shared today. If you found this content helpful and inspiring, please hit the like button to support us and share it to spread this message to more people. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any upcoming valuable content. We truly appreciate your support and hope to continue bringing you useful information in the future. Thank you and see you again soon.